what is your how are you looking at this big move from the lows that we've seen? India's performance, I was looking at data, and we'll put it out in just a bit from now, has actually been one of the worst. YTD, India is tracking as one of the worst markets globally, dollar terms. What is your sense?
Well, I think, thanks for having me on. It's nice to be back. India went into this crisis with a very weak economy. As you know, our growth was slowing down well before the pandemic crisis happened. So it came at an inopportune time. Our recovery out of this crisis also is going to be slow. I think in a market like India, to expect V-shaped recoveries when you have a very complex, diverse economy is being way too optimistic. So as I see it, the markets will remain bifurcated like they have over the last many, many years. There are a few great companies that account for most of the gains. And in this environment, that's probably going to continue.
Market-wise, Shiv, do you think we have put in a bottom in March, late March?
Yeah, I think that markets, probably likely around the world, but certainly here, seem to have bottomed in March. There was a lot of panic at that time. Valuations itself had gotten to levels where, most businesses looked like people had priced in whether they would even be around. It's quite likely with government policy that's happened since then, some of it will help. And that will mean that there is a certain base that's established. So I think the lows are there, but the up move is going to be slow and it's going to be painful. And then there are going to be fewer winners this time than there were there even in the last 10 years.
Wow. Okay. Even fewer winners in this phase from here than we've seen in the last 10 years. For everyone watching who are not institutions or global funds which can invest in markets around the world, but basically who can invest in their own market here in India, that isn't very promising. That isn't a promising kind of statement, Shiv. Explain that a little bit more. Are you saying that the economy has been impaired to a far greater degree than what we've seen before? The tools available aren't there. I mean, what exactly makes you say that?
Well, so I think that what we've seen is, pandemics tend to accelerate trends that were already there. And they're doing the same for investing. We saw that the big companies in India over the last 10 years, whether it's in a few areas like financial services, consumer, etc., have been accounting for all of the gains. That's been going on for a long time. The broader indices have not been doing well. And we see that today, looking at businesses which are in two categories, ones that are lockdown impacted and the other that are COVID impacted. Lockdown impacted companies will recover over time. COVID impacted companies, need to fundamentally change their model, and they probably don't have the balance sheet at the moment or the business model to be able to do that. So you're going to see more consolidation happen, not less. And therefore, there's going to be fewer winners in each industry, not more, which makes it quite narrow. But that's probably how it's going to play out.
Shiv, good morning. That's an interesting thought. And I guess those are the kind of questions one needs to ask as you're setting up a post-COVID portfolio. Now, we've also seen an interesting sector changeover, right? There's a lot of interest that's come back in pharma stocks, though I don't know how much of it is based on a fundamental shift and an improvement in business, or was it just because of the under-ownership of this part of the market? What's your view on pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, I think there is a fair bit of under-ownership and sort of near-term views on the pharma. Pharma is it's not as smooth sailing as it looked. Again, for the last 10 years, it's been a very difficult place to be. And if you look at most countries, essential pharmaceuticals are going to have to be made domestically. Nobody wants to rely on global supply chains for essential drugs to save a few dollars. So it is something that, maybe even today the FDA is being, quote unquote, more lenient than they've been in the past, but even that may not last. So I think pharma is something that certain pockets of it have a lot of potential, but for India to capitalize on it, the premise of which being it is the low-cost provider, that is going to be tested.